You're in the trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics. The Cincinnati Bengals took to the field again today, continuing preseason camp. But one thing that came back, Trey Hendrickson returns to Bengals camp. And Dave, even though he didn't participate in any of the drills today, it was good to see Trey there. That means things must be moving forward between him and the Bengals.
You would think so, Dave. Knowing Mike Brown, having negotiated, with Mike Brown, I feel like he feels like it's close. It's just around the corner. They've agreed to terms. They've agreed to a few of the terms and conditions, and the big ones, the amount of money, how many years, the average salary per year, those kind of things. But terms and conditions in terms of bonus money, the amount, how much is deferred, when to pay it out, all of those kind of things are terms and conditions that are a lot of times the final pieces of the contract that need to be agreed upon before a deal is going to be consummated and signed. But the fact that he's here is a very, very positive sign in my mind. I mean, both Mike Brown in both camps, Mike Brown's camp and Trey Hendrickson's camp, I think they feel like they've inched as close as they possibly can, and there's probably about another inch to go before they cross that finish line. So the fact that he's here is a good sign that inch will come pretty quickly.
With Trey Hendrickson coming to camp, that means the Bengals had to make some roster moves. They released running back Zack Moss, who played in 8 games a year ago, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, had that neck injury, was coming back from that. But they also activated center Seth McLaughlin, who was signed as an undrafted free agent who played at Alabama and Ohio State. And there's a lot of high hopes as far as what McLaughlin brings to the field.
Yeah, Dave, and I agree with it. The guy, Alabama and Ohio State, two of the more storied programs in the history of college football, and currently 2 of the best programs in college football. Perennial top 10, top 5 football teams when final polls are determined after the bowl games and the national championship game, etc. This guy can play. I think the Bengals feel very, very good about bringing him to camp. It's at some point in time here, Ted Karras is going to have to call it a career. He's going into his 10th season. Not a whole lot of people, when they start playing in the National Football League, get 10 years under their belt. That's almost like the final milestone for everybody, really, when you're talking about goal setting. The first goal is to make the team. You get drafted, you want to make the team. You want to make the team that drafted you. You don't want to be cut and, you still have a chance to make a team, and a lot of people do. Get waived and make a football team, but you'd like to make the football team that drafted you. But it doesn't happen all the time. So the fact is, Ted Karras, college football player, plays at a high level, gets drafted, goes to New England Patriots, got a very very good center that's playing there. Ted's going to back him up. He wins the spot on the team as the backup center, and he doesn't get a whole lot of playing time for the first 4 years of his career. And I think that's serving him well right now, because he's a 10-year player, but he doesn't have the wear and tear of a 10-year player, who maybe started in the second year in the NFL after a rookie season of indoctrination. He's a guy that had to wait a few years because he was playing behind a pretty damn good center with the New England Patriots. And the Patriots were, winning Super Bowls, or getting right to the AFC Championship game. Bill Belichick coaching, Tom Brady quarterbacking. That was a good football team. And, Ted basically had a role with that football team that was the backup center, but he learned a lot about the game from the veteran center ahead of him, from his quarterback Tom Brady, from Bill Belichick, and Ted Karras. He's over 30 years old, but he does not have the wear and tear on his body that most 30-year-old guys have. So he's an interesting scenario, and I do think that's one of the things the Bengals are looking to do, though, is to say, all right, who is the incumbent to Ted Karras? He's over 30 or 32 years old. Can't play forever. Once you get up into the 30s, the wear and tear of an NFL regular season takes its toll on a body a lot more severely, and you have fewer and fewer years left to play. Obviously, the graph starts to plummet. You build and you're building to a crescendo every year. You're getting better. Your body is hanging in there. You hit the peak years of your athletic career in your mid-20s, and now you're rolling in the NFL. Everything's great, and then you hit your 30s, and it starts to the graph starts to fall. But again, because of Ted's the way his career path went, the fact that he didn't beat his body up, wear and tear on that body his first 4 years, he's pretty spry. I mean, he's got a lot left. He's got juice. I mean, he's got plenty of gas left in the tank, and it's going to be interesting to see how he plays this year. But there are a few candidates. McLaughlin's going to be one of them for the backup center position. I think that's a position that is going to be one of the more hotly contested positions on the football team. Who will be the backup center to Ted Karras? And it's an important position because the center is the guy. The center is the quarterback of the offensive line. The center makes all the calls to the offensive lineman. The center gets everybody going in the right direction with respect to a call he makes, dictates everybody's assignments and who they're supposed to block, how they're supposed to block them, and why they're blocking that particular guy. So, you have to have an intelligent player at the center position. Ted Karras is all of that. He's football Mensa. I mean, he's as bright as they come. You're not going to pull the wool over Ted Karras's eyes very often as a defensive coordinator. It's just not going to happen. So I think the Bengals have been blessed to have Ted Karras at that center position for as long as they have. But they know that it's not going to go on forever, and he's at the twilight of his career.
I think fans felt last season they had found maybe Ted Karras's replacement in Matt Lee, but getting the chance to get a Seth McLaughlin, who many people felt was going to be a high-round draft pick as an undrafted free agent, that was just too good to pass up.
Yeah, and I really can't figure out why. If there was an injury, it wasn't, like a surgery, rehab, that I'm aware of.
He had a major injury towards the back end of last season, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
It ended his season, but he started in the first 10 games for Ohio State last season, and then had the injury, but was still considered a first-team All-American, first-team All-Big Ten. He received a guy you're very familiar with, Dave Remington Trophy, as the best center in college football. And, this is a guy who, like I said, a lot of people felt was going to be a high round draft pick, and you would have thought someone would have still taken the risk in those later rounds. But to go, sometimes it's better to be undrafted, as you know, to where you get to pick where you want to go. And Seth McLaughlin comes to the Bengals, sees an opportunity, as you explained. You got Ted Karras on the back 40 of his career. Someone's got to step in and take that place. And that, as you said, competition breeds success, in my opinion. And you have a competition now with McLaughlin, Matt Lee, to be that backup. And as you know, one play can change a season. You can be the starting guy today, and one play you're out for the rest of the season, and you need quality backup. And it's good to see these type of position battles and what McLaughlin and Lee's going to do the rest of the way here in camp, especially when we get into preseason games.
Yeah, and I throw Patrick into that mix as well. I mean, Patrick has played the center position some, and he's playing some during practices. There's a rotation in there, and they're obviously acutely aware of what's going on with Ted Karras and the backup center position. Scott Peters knows, and Scott Peters he's basically having a daily audition. Who wants to take control of the backup center position? Who's going to step up and show me that on a snap-by-snap basis, that they want to be the guy? And you got a guy, McLaughlin, who, as you mentioned, Dave, Alabama and Ohio State. Come on now, that's a pedigree. You're not going to be playing against better football players at the collegiate level than you're going to be playing against in the SEC and the Big Ten. And he played for a football teams that were the top end, cream of the cream of those respective conferences. So they had great players. And those great players have to practice against each other. So not only in the games, but I mean, every day in practice, he's going against a guy that is one of the better players in all of high school football in the United States of America, in the world, for crying out loud. I mean, he's going against, the best players that he could possibly be going against in his collegiate career. And unfortunately, he suffered that injury you talked about, and it fell off everybody's table for some reason. And I think the Bengals are wise to just, why don't you just say, hey, I'm gonna take a shot here. I'm gonna lay a card down on the table and see if it's a wild card. I'm gonna sign McLaughlin and bring him to camp, see what he can do, and he's competing. He's competing well. I mean, it ain't too big for him. I can tell you that right now. Going against what he did go against every day in practice, like we're talking about at Alabama and Ohio State, he's not shying away from competition. This guy loves to compete. I mean, he's out there getting after it. He's very, very physical. He's got a very, very high energy attitude. He wants to get after it. He can't wait till the next snap to compete again. And the coaches are noticing that, and his teammates are noticing that. He's a high caliber player. You don't get a guy of his. He's been rewarded and awarded for his level and performance of play his entire career. You don't get a guy like that as a college free agent. That's a good job by the Bengals scouting department, and good job not only looking and evaluating the tape, which is probably the easiest part of it because he did play well against excellent competition, but finding out from the coaches what kind of a guy he is, finding out from the medical department. How bad is that injury? Do you think there's going to be any long-term lingering effect? And they must have gotten great answers, from the coaches about his attitude and the type of guy he is and type of citizen he is and all that sort of thing. And then also medically, the trainers must have, gotten good answers to the questions they had for the Ohio State medical staff. And here he is, and he's competing his tail off. There's no question about that. And I would not be surprised whatsoever if he's on the final roster as the backup center to Ted Karras. Would not shock me one iota.
You're in the trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics. First Star Logistics, one of the fastest growing companies in Cincinnati and a great place to work. Lap and I can both attest to our time when we go down to the First Star Logistics studios to do some work that you will have a great time if you are an employee there. To learn more, visit firststarlogistics.com for details on positions available. Lap, you brought up Lucas Patrick, a 9-year veteran, 32 years of age, out of Duke. So he's got some brains behind that as well. And versatility, something all about playing on the offensive line, having a guy that played multiple positions. And Lucas Patrick is trying to show that, hey, I can do anything you need me to do to be on this team.
Yeah, and he does it well. I mean, Lucas Patrick, you can tell that he's been in the National Football League for a while. He's played 9 years going into his 10th. Or 8 years going into his 9th. He's going into his 9th year. Ted Karras is going into his 10th. Those are the elder statesmen on the roster on the football team. And as an aside, Dave, Ted Karras is the only player on the Cincinnati Bengals entire roster of 91 players that is going into his double-digit season. Everybody else is 9 years or less. That is remarkable. I don't think there's another team in the NFL that can make that claim, that they've got so many players in the prime of their career on a 91-man roster competing, for roster spots and be a viable backup, if not a starter for their respective football team. In this case, the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, that's really is crazy, because now you're talking about guys that are going to the prime years for their NFL career and in their mid-20s, and there's a bunch of them that are fighting for spots. There's going to be a lot of guys, second, third, fourth, fifth-year players. They're going to be making big contributions to the success of this football team and having the great year that this football team can have. Like we're talking about, Lucas Patrick. I mean, this guy has been in the league for a while. He knows all the ropes. He's not going to be fooled. He's a guy that understands what it takes to get ready to compete, both physically and mentally at the highest level in the National Football League, because he's done it, for eight good seasons, and he's performed well. I mean, he's highly regarded, highly thought of around the league. So, I mean, you get a guy that could be, maybe I could see for him as be a starting guard, left or right guard. I'm not sure which one. He can play all three. He could probably play all five in a pinch. I bet he could go out there and get a job done at the tackle position and not embarrass himself, because he understands football and understands the level of football that you have to perform at to be successful in the National Football League. But he definitely can play either guard or center. So he could be a starter at one guard, a primary backup at the center position. He could play the other guard position in a pinch. If there's an injury or whatever, you could just flop him right over there, flip him. And that is invaluable, invaluable. So, he may solve the problem of the backup center right there, or, they may say, hey, there's room for him and McLaughlin on the football team, because, McLaughlin can play guard as well. He could kick outside from the center position, kick out to the guard spot, and be able to contribute and to the football team and take care of himself and know what to do and how to do it and why he has to get it done the way he's supposed to. So, I think that that's the biggest area of improvement in the offensive line, Dave, is the interior of the offensive line. Who's going to back up Ted Karras is a primary question that you've raised and posed here, and rightfully so. And then also, who's going to be the guards? I mean, the starting guards are both going to be different than last year's starting guards. Who's going to be the guy? Cody Ford, his hat's in the ring. He's in the mix there. There's a bunch of players that are trying to, get that starting position, that coveted starting position in the National Football League, starting offensive lineman, starting guard in the NFL. There's something to be proud of. There's no question about that. And everybody wants to do everything they possibly can to achieve that goal. So it's going to be a real battle royale. There's no doubt. It's going to be stiff competition. And, it's in working against the improved interior defensive lineman in the Cincinnati Bengals camp. The defensive tackles, I think, is the most improved defensive position on that side of the football for the Cincinnati Bengals. So the battles that are going to be raging on a daily basis at center and guard, working against those two interior defensive tackles predominantly, it's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how it all shakes out.
One more thing on the offensive line, Lap. Amarius Mims was posted on social media that he sat out multiple offensive series, but fans probably shouldn't get too worried about Mims taking some time off, especially when we get to this part of camp when things start picking up a little bit more in that contact, and you may get a little nick here and there.
Yeah, and he's been dealing with a thumb issue, and he had that thumb problem last year as well. And I think eventually there may have to be some surgery. I know players don't like to have surgery. There's no doubt about that. Nobody looks, hey, what am I going to have operated on this offseason? I mean, nobody's looking to have their body cut and carved open. But I think that thumb has given him some problems, and it's pretty good size. I mean, there's some arthritis in there. It seems like. I'm not a doctor, that's for sure. But it looks to be something that is making that joint look a little bit larger than the other, and I would assume that it would be arthritis would be the primary candidate to be the problem that's being posed in there. So I don't know. I mean, he's not going to have surgery now, but I know during practice a couple of times he asked the trainers to retape it and put a little more tape on it to try to stabilize it a little bit more and make it almost like a cast-like situation where he couldn't move the thing at all. So obviously it's a little ouchy, man. The thing's bothering him. There's no question about that, and there's no reason to force the issue, this early. Pads come on though, and like you said, Dave, the intensity level picks up. It's full contact, particularly in the offensive and defensive line. There's full contact there. You're not going to cut people. You're not going to do that sort of thing and jeopardize knee injuries and things of that nature. But you're going to blast people. You're going to come off the line of scrimmage and knock people back as best you can. And defensive line is going to try to knock you back. They're going to try to hold down the fort and roll their hips and snap get after you in terms of shutting you down at the line of scrimmage. So there's a lot of contact going on by full-grown men. We're talking about guys that are 6'5" to 6'8", 300 pounds to 350 pounds. So it's a very, very interesting place to be between the tackles and like 2 or 3 yards on either side of the line of scrimmage. There's a lot of pushing and pulling and muscle that's being tested in there by full-grown men. I can tell you that right now.
Right before recording this, Joe Burrow spoke to the media. Lap, I've got to ask you this question. Joe stated during his presser he feels he's throwing the football the best he has since he arrived in the NFL. And we're talking about a quarterback who had 43 touchdowns, only 9 interceptions a season ago for almost 5,000 yards. How can you throw it much better?
Yeah, that's a $1 million question, Dave. But he is. He's thrown it, or I should say, he's thrown it as well as I've ever seen him throw it. And he's doing it every single day. And that's the thing about Joe Burrow that has been amazing to me. I think since he's been in the National Football League, he's been the best quarterback from a performance standpoint because, the 2 things, 2 C's, consistency and continuity. And his consistency of performance in terms of throwing the football day in and day out, every single practice from one day to the next, that carries over to game day. And then he'll throw the ball the exact same way, consistently, getting the ball out of his hand in a timely fashion, making reads like before the defense can do anything about it. The ball is out of Joe Burrow's hand. And, it's a perfect release. He's snapping that hand and rolling that wrist and snapping that hand to the outside and getting that follow through. And that ball is spinning beautifully, coming off his hand with perfect rotation and pinpoint accuracy. And he does it every single time he throws the football. I mean, he's not a robot. He's human. So every once in a while, there's going to be a problem, maybe a little bit of a bobble or a waffle in his throw, or a ball's going to get hit or his arm's going to get hit or things of that nature. But when he is allowed to go through his proper mechanics and fundamentals and throw the football, it is a thing of beauty. I mean, it's almost like a robot, the way he can repeat it over and over and over again. And repetition, breeds excellence. And his performances have been excellent. I mean, he's the best. He sees open receivers before anybody else in the National Football League. He sees the play develop before just about any quarterback in the NFL could hope to do so. I mean, man, and when he completes as many passes as he's completing, he's competing and at an extremely high level. And when your quarterback is competing like that, and competition breeds excellence performance. And Joe Burrow is so competitive and so talented. His excellence performance is so high. I mean, it's off the charts. His upper tier of what he can accomplish is lofty, man. It's out there in space, out there with the stars and moon. But he gets to it. He achieves it and rises up to that level every single week, every single throw. So he's a competitive guy that has a consistency of performance that is second to none. And it shows up in his performances on a week-to-week basis. There is no question about it. Nobody prepares themselves to play the game at a higher level than Joe Burrow does. And he takes it seriously. And his teammates know that he takes it seriously, and they never have to worry about, is Joe Burrow ready to play? Is Joe Burrow up in the bit? Is he ready to go this week? Joe Burrow loves football. Joe Burrow loves to compete, and he competes at the highest level anybody can possibly compete at.
You're in the trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics. Lap, let's continue with Joe Burrow here before we close this out. A lot of praise during his presser for the Bengals defense, what he's seeing, what Al Golden's brought to this defense, especially, and he praised the secondary. And you know, when you sit there and look, that was one of the issues a year ago when you look at this defense was the play of the secondary. The two coaches Al Golden really kept was Charles Burks and Jordan Kovacs. And you can see that these guys are starting to really, looks like, come together and play as a unit. And they get tested every single day when they're going against Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Andre Yosavash, and the rest of the Bengals receivers.
Dave, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I think that is the biggest improvement on the defensive side of the football. The cornerbacks, the players that they brought into camp to play cornerback, to compete at the cornerback position, to elevate the level of play. Because last year it wasn't good enough. It did not cut the mustard. You're not going to win in the National Football League playing the cornerback position collectively and individually like they played it last year. There was nobody that really had, a very productive season where it's like, oh yeah, man, I'm proud of that performance. There was nobody that probably could stand up and raise their hand and say, I did. I had the type of year that I was hoping for and looking for, and I'm satisfied. I don't think anybody is satisfied with what took place last year. And ultimately it cost Lou Anarumo his job, and the cornerback position is something that he initially came to the football team, to work with and develop and mature players in that secondary. And, he had some good years here in Cincinnati doing exactly that. And his defense had some good years, and they were solid in the secondary. They did a good job individually and collectively, and went to the Super Bowl. But here lately, it just hasn't worked. Players, the mix of players, the techniques or fundamentals that they're being taught, whatever it just didn't mesh. It was like a square peg in a round hole. It just didn't work. Wasn't going to fit. There wasn't a fit there, and just about every possible level. So made the change. Al Golden has been unbelievable, a godsend. I think Joe Burrow respects Al Golden and what he's doing defensively, what he's installing from a structural standpoint. I think Joe Burrow feels like the defense is in great hands. I think he feels like the back end of the defense, that's Al Golden's specialty as well. Al Golden coached that back end. He's coached linebackers as well, but he's coached that back end. He coached it with the Cincinnati Bengals prior to being a defensive coordinator when he was here the first time as a member of Lou Anarumo's staff. So I think he knows what he wants at the cornerback position. I think he knows the type of player that he wants physically, the type of player that has to have the mental capacity to handle what he's installing and can understand what he wants done and how he wants it done and why he wants it done. Those are two big questions, how and why. And if he finds players that have the answers for it, he'll play them every snap. He wants players that he can believe in, and he wants them to believe in him. He wants to have that mutual respect between coach and player. And I think that he feels good about his coaching staff. He feels like he's got a bunch of good teachers that can teach what he's trying to get done from a fundamental and technique standpoint to the players defensively, particularly on the back end, particularly at the cornerback position. Like we mentioned, Dave, guard had to be addressed, had to be taken care of. Cornerback had to be addressed, had to be taken care of. It wasn't good enough at both of those position groups last season. And the Bengals went 9-8 and still almost made the playoffs. So it tells you that they're in pretty good shape in a lot of other positions, individual positions on this football team. And they just need to get a little bit better, or a good bit better at the cornerback position and the guard position. And they could be a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Legitimate. I think it's going to happen. And I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later.
You're in the trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics. First Star Logistics, one of the fastest growing companies in Cincinnati and a great place to work. Lap and I can both attest to our time when we go down to the First Star Logistics studios to do some work that you will have a great time if you are an employee there. To learn more, Visit firststarlogistics.com for details on positions available. Lap, I have to thank you again for the time you give us to put these together after practices. You have a long day. We appreciate it. And we look forward to talking to you again more as the Cincinnati Bengals continue training camp. Until next time, Hoo Day.
Hoo day, Dave.